Hey everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Our guest today, or tonight, whenever you're watching this, is the man, Chris Bumstead, one of the greatest classic physique competitors alive today. And we've got him a few weeks before the Olympia. Maybe we'll get him right after the Olympia when he wins, God willing. But for now, Chris, let's talk about a few different things. I'm going to be all over the place, so I hope you're strapped in here.
The usual question.
No, I try to avoid, because I ask you about like Graston and arms and back and all this shit like every month when I talk to you for your column. So
Yeah,
I'm trying to go in some different directions for the viewers and keep things interesting. So
absolutely.
last weekend I was in Tampa, Florida for the Tampa Pro. There were 52 women, I believe, in the pro figure division.
Hmm.
Who wins it but a Bumstead? Melissa Bumstead.
Crazy.
Yeah, I was like, holy crap. But I was very happy for her because I know that's her first pro win, correct?
Second actually. She won a show last year in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pro shows for fitness and bikini and stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I kept track. So you were 5 weeks out. I assume you wanted to be there, but you couldn't be there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the 2 weeks prior to that, I had actually flown out with her to Los Angeles for her show, and upcoming to those weeks, I had been out of the country for 10 weeks in a row. So starting my prep like that made it extremely hard, and obviously I wanted to be there for her, but I needed to kind of lock down my own prep, get my routine and everything kind of into the right spot, and just be home for longer than 5 days. So yeah, but she's real independent. She honestly liked being there alone, so she stayed at the host hotel, just didn't have to leave, had all her food, and did good. Yeah.
Because you were all over. It looked like you were a few different places. Where else? You were in Los Angeles for that. Were you also in Miami at one point?
Earlier in the year, yeah, but right before
Oh,
LA, I was in Mississippi for guest posing.
okay. I
Yeah,
get confused because sometimes the pictures people post are not like current, but I'm too
exactly.
lazy to read the whole caption. So she won a pro show, and then I think was the one in Spain the weekend before Tampa?
Yep, it was the weekend before, I believe.
Okay, so
Where you,
that was her boyfriend, your training partner. He's an honorary Bumstead. Maybe he'll change his name when they get married. I don't know. Ian Valier. So he got that was definitely his first pro win, right?
That was his, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
It was third or fourth show this year he's been doing. He's been kind of gunning around, got a few top fives this year, and brought a completely new package to every single show. The first time he stepped on stage at Indy Pro, he looked like a brand new bodybuilder, just so much more size he'd put on in all the right ways. And every show he kind of showed up a little bit more crisp, a little bit more full, just better and better each show. And finally he nailed it for Spain and got the W. So he was very happy about that.
Big man weekend. Was there a better name for it, or is that the only name I could find
I
for it?
I believe that's what it's called, the Big Man Weekend. Yeah, the Big Man Show, something. Yeah.
To the promoters, if you're listening, come up with something different. It's kind of
I
maybe
feel like I feel like that was a direct translation you put into Google Translate.
yeah, like how Japanese game shows are called like Happy Fun Time,
Exactly.
weird
Yeah.
shit like that. Okay, so that was definitely his first. I remember hearing like as far back as was the Indy his first show this year.
It was. Yeah.
I remember people were saying I think he was like fourth there, fourth or fifth.
You got fourth. Yeah.
But a lot of people said they could have had him, second or maybe even first. He was already that good. And I just checked out his Instagram and his Facebook earlier today and yesterday, and wow, he dialed in for this show for
Oh yeah.
the Spain show.
Yeah.
Well earned. So it looks like the whole family is competing at the Olympia.
Yeah.
Uh, was this something you guys ever, when you're all together, ever talked about? Said, wouldn't it be cool someday if we could all do the Olympia together?
Definitely, it's something we talked about, especially after last year where me and my sister made it together.
Yeah.
And I think we were like the first ever brother sister to make it to the Olympia the same year. So
Yeah.
that was all in its own cool and amazing. And as soon as that happened, Ian was like a fire lit under his ass. He's like, I'm going to be up there with you guys. Hopefully next year. He knew he wanted it really bad, and I had no doubt he'd be up there eventually. This year, he kind of. I knew he had made some crazy improvements, but he still kind of shocked me with how much better he had done. And once I'd seen him on stage a few times, I had complete faith he could make it on the stage this year. So absolutely, we talked about it a few times, tried not to jinx it, but we were all hoping to plan to kind of get down there. We prepped together, we're all going down there and staying in the suite and just kind of making the weekend like a team weekend. Yeah.
So who's been prepping the longest out of everybody? Him?
Um, Probably Melissa,
Melissa.
I believe. Yeah. She preps almost year round. It's crazy.
Oh, jeez. Now, I'm trying to think if there is any other, have there ever been other brother sister pros? And I can't think of any offhand. Have you ever heard of any others?
I haven't heard of any. No, a lot of people told us we were the first to make it to Olympia, but I'm not sure about pros in general.
Yeah, I don't.
There's,
Someone can
there's
correct me in the comments or whatever. But I
Johnson
don't.
and Leah Johnson
Who?
are from Nova Scotia. Mike and Leah Johnson.
Oh, are they brother and sister?
Yeah, they're from Nova Scotia. So
Mike was Antoine's training partner for a while, right?
yeah,
Okay. Now he's like into hunting and guns and beards and yeah, cool guy though.
smart man.
So is this the first time you've all been prepping, obviously for the same show, I guess, but have there been other periods in time where you're all getting ready for a show at the same time?
We've never, the three of us have never done the same show, but we've all been prepping before at the same time. So we're definitely something we're used to and definitely thrive off each other. Like lately, since Ian qualified, I think I've gone over to their house every single day, eat my pre-workout meal. We've trained together almost every day, just kind of built a routine around the three of us, and it really keeps us all motivated.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
Yeah.
it's got to be cool to have a whole tight knit group of basically you are a family. I mean,
Absolutely, yeah.
are they engaged? I hate to pry, but do they have like a wedding date?
Yeah, they're getting married in November, actually.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
I hate to be nosy, but I mean, inquiring minds want to know. So, you definitely have a good shot at winning the Olympia. You were second last year with and you've improved since then. And figure, I don't know. I don't think anyone's like that dominant in figure. I know there's a couple women that are talked about that way, but how cool would it be if you guys were both Olympia champions too this year?
I mean, absolutely. That would definitely be a first and definitely a crazy thing to happen. You never know what could happen, but
True. What was my next question? How much cardio? Yeah, I told you I was going to jump around all over the place.
it's
So
all good.
cardio, you talked about in one of your vlogs, and I got to tell people, your YouTube channel, you just basically started really picking it up and putting a lot more content on there. And it's just your name, Chris Bumstead, correct?
Yeah, just Chris Bumstead on
Yeah,
YouTube.
great stuff on there, guys. Check it out. He's got workouts, he's got vlogs, and shows every damn morsel of food he eats from the time he wakes up, time he goes to bed. So if you want to be a Chris Bumstead stalker, his YouTube channel is definitely the way to go.
The people are asking for.
So how much cardio are you doing at this stage of your prep?
Right now, I'm up to an hour a day.
Okay.
So I usually wake up at 45 to an hour. It depends on what I'm training that day. But I usually wake up, do half an hour in the morning, and then I do either 20 or half an hour post-workout as well.
Okay. And I know you, like most of us, you don't particularly enjoy cardio, but you've found some ways to make the time go by much better. So can you share that with the rest of us who absolutely hate cardio?
Well, the biggest thing I find is, especially everybody, the easiest way to distract ourselves is with our phones and notifications and whatnot. So I kind of, like, when I wake up, I grab my phone, I turn my alarm off, I don't even look at it. I just put it in my pocket, I get changed, and I try and trudge. I have a gym in my apartment, which helps. And I kind of trudge down there half asleep. And then once I get on there, I open up my phone, I check all the notifications, I check emails, I reply to emails, everything that I would kind of like almost like a little bit of work on my phone. I get that done in the first little bit. And also the night before, I always Netflix allows you to download stuff now.
Yep.
So if you don't have Wi-Fi at your gym, I download it. I've been watching Suits. I've been binge watching that. And I just kind of try and get all my notifications and emails out of the way, and then I just watch an episode of Netflix, and it seems to fly by.
So this is like treadmill. This is nothing where you're like going crazy, I assume then.
No, I don't go too crazy on the cardio. Don't catch me doing sprints or anything.
Okay. Who's your coach? I know I should know this, but who's your coach for this?
Ian.
It is Ian.
Yeah.
I want to confirm that. I didn't want to put that out there if it wasn't accurate, but it's Ian Villiers. Wow. You basically, you guys are like a one-stop shop.
Pretty much, yeah. It's crazy.
Okay. Now it's some more general questions, because you're going to get all the questions about the division and all that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So here's one I came up with. As the classic division grows, I see a real distinction forming between two very different types of physiques. You have the taller men like yourself, Wesley Vissers and Henri, I just learned how to pronounce his name, Henri Pierre Arnaud. Then you have the shorter competitors like Brian, Danny Hester, Terrence Ruffin. How do you think the judges deal with trying to compare such drastically different frames and structures fairly?
I mean, that's part of what bodybuilding is at the end of the day. It's just, there will be, I'm sure there's a little bit of biased opinion if a specific judge like some larger, more muscular person as opposed to a smaller, more compact version of that physique or whatnot. But personally, I like to think that maybe I'm biased, but I like to think that the taller physiques are a bit more of an advantage because at the end of the day, it is bodybuilding. So you look on stage and you're drawn to the biggest, most muscular thing up there. Yes, of course, aesthetics and classic physique, but if you have two guys with the same level of aesthetics, but one guy's 180 pounds, the other guy's 230, your eye is just kind of drawn to the bigger one. So personally, I like to think that I'm at an advantage.
It's interesting because I hear a lot of the fans talking and echoing a similar sentiment. And, you know, I hate to hear that because I'm not the tallest guy, and most of the bodybuilders I know aren't the tallest people. But it seems like classic does sort of lean toward that. If you're looking at the aesthetics, if you have a 6 foot or 6'2" frame with really wide shoulders and a small waist, it's always going to be more impressive aesthetically than the same structure on a guy who's 5'5" or 5'6" or 7" even. So I get it.
It is harder to fill out too. Like the longer your limbs, the harder it's to fill out. The taller you are, usually naturally the bigger your waist is. So if you can manage to be taller and put on the right size and keep that waist tight, it's a bit more of a mission to do it as opposed to short guys. I mean, there's the first year I think everybody who won a pro show was about 5'8" or shorter, and it's a pretty common physique. I know not to talk shit about any of the other guys, but it's a little bit. It's less common to see taller, big guys with a tight waist and full muscle bellies.
And, you know, you're kind of an anomaly in that, you know, you say a lot of people will say for taller guys, it's harder to build legs. And I agree that you have these long femurs and everything. It's a lot more leg to fill out. But, you know, you've managed to do it while the other two guys I just mentioned, they got a little bit of work to do to catch up realistically to get their legs equivalent to their upper bodies, like Wesley and Henri. But, yeah, you're an anomaly. There's not many guys who are 6 foot with the legs are proportional. Your legs are actually ahead of your upper body for quite a while. Okay. More classic division questions. Classic division, it's still trying to establish its identity and criteria. Right now, there are a good amount of pros. This is just my opinion. I'm not saying it as a fact. Competing in classic who are definitely what I consider straight-up bodybuilders who just so happen to be able to make the weight limits. What do you feel the ideals of classic should be? And would a lot of these men fail to qualify as classic physique if they were strictly enforced by all the judges, those ideals?
I mean, this is a common battle that has been going on ever since the division was created, and you hear both sides of people battling that if you make weight, then you're classic. Period. At the end of the day, but I don't think the argument would exist, or people would have that opinion that you're not classic if there wasn't a visual thing that you see. And I mean, the biggest person people talk about this is usually Regan. Ooh, he moved down from the Open after a few years, and I think he gets a little bit more flack from it because he was already so successful in the Open, and then he decided to switch. So that people are kind of like thinking he'd given up, but he still got a pretty classic physique and all that. Personally, I kind of think that classic physiques usually come from more of an ectomorph kind of body. So a little bit skinnier, you got smaller like wrists, ankles maybe, which also usually lead to a smaller waist. Like I was a pretty skinny kid, so it's a little bit harder for me to put on muscle. Whereas you see someone like Regan, he's killing himself doing 2 hours of cardio a day since 14 weeks out to try and make weight. I was doing 20 minutes of cardio at the beginning 5 times a week, and my weight was still kind of dropping, you know? So for me to make weight, yes, it's hard, but I'm not struggling year round. Like I still got to eat in my off season just to hold on to the weight I have right now. So it's a common battle. It's always going to be a person's opinion, but personally, I do believe that there is a classic look. Even if in the weight, you might not look classic physique. You can just be too big, have the wrong proportions, not have the right X frame, and posing is a big thing too. I know a lot of guys are just a little bit too awkward, and I don't know if they'll ever be able to learn how to pose. Just so stiff, and like they got to hit things straight on with their legs really wide apart. It's just kind of a flow that comes naturally, or it doesn't.
Now I know Regan's actually a friend of yours, right?
Kind of.
No. He's more a friend of he's more a friend of like Zane and those guys, I think.
Yeah, he lives like 8 hours away from me, so we don't really.
See, I thought you guys were all like best friends up in Canada. Anyway, I mean he is the guy that most people will use as an example. That's not classic. That's just a bodybuilder who was somehow able to suck down to I think he has to be 225. Is that your weight limit, 225, or is it 230 now?
For me, it's 230, but I believe when he did New York, it was 222. That's what I heard. So
Is he short? He's a little shorter than you, isn't he?
I believe he's shorter than me. Yeah.
Well, you can kind of go on your tiptoes when they measure you, I guess, but there's probably a lot of tricks you can utilize. But the reason I bring him up is, I mean, that's the example. I mean, if you were the guy who determined who's allowed to be a classic physique pro and who isn't, regardless of what weight they make, would you want him as a classic physique pro or not? This is not being biased, personal, nothing. Just straight up looking at the physique.
It's hard to say. I think right now, yes, he still looks like he's classic right now, but he's 23 years old and he is trying. He's struggling to make this weight constantly, and I think his body is just built for the open. So, like, if I were to give a personal opinion what he should do, I think he should go back to the open. And I think eventually he's going to have to. If he wants to have a few years, maybe 1 or 2 years right now, where a little bit of glory, he gets a win here or there and plays a little bit better at Olympia. But eventually I think he's going to have to move up to the open just because he's struggling so hard to make weight.
Should he go back to Kuwait?
Should he?
Yeah.
No. No. I think some people can handle that, but he's a little bit more like me. He enjoys life, and he can balance having a real life and bodybuilding. You don't need to fly across the country and get rid of all distractions. Just train hard and eat right.
Yeah, I mean, it's Breon's there right now, as we all know, and it's. Mm-hmm. I got to talk to him and like, well, what are you doing in Kuwait, dude? I mean, I'm curious. Usually people go there to put like 30 pounds of muscle on, and he can't. Yeah. He can't do that, or he'd be out of your division. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk. We'll talk, Breon. I know you're listening. So more random crap. Chris, what do you think is your best pose, and what do you think is your worst pose?
My best pose, probably. I mean, my best pose is probably front lat spread, but that's not even an option in classic anymore. So probably front double bicep. Okay. Anything I'm kind of straight on that shows off my kind of V-taper because I have really high, big lat insertions. So those helps me have a tiny waist and big quads. So anything where I'm straight on, kind of showing off my X-frame, usually best. So front double. My weakest pose is probably a back double, just because my biceps are all they're small and they're all in the front of my arm. So when I crank them back, you can't see them much from the back. And my lats are wide, but I lack density, or I did at least last year. I built up quite a bit, but the hardest part for me was back density. So probably back double is my weakest shot.
What pose has improved the most since you started competing? Suppose it used to be pretty crappy, but now it's pretty good.
Definitely my side chest, for sure. Because like I said, I was a pretty skinny kid, so when you have a smaller frame, usually that when you turn from the side, you're not very thick. Yeah. So although it was wide with my lats, but from the side I was pretty thin. So I've definitely brought up a lot of thickness, kind of in my upper chest and my hamstrings and whatnot.
Cool. Now I don't know if you remember, I sent you a picture of a young guy at my gym who has. Oh yeah. He's Colin. I know he's going to watch this, so if you could say shout out to Colin, my buddy, and sign here. But he's such a fan. He got the same tattoo, that tiger that you have on your forearm there. Yeah. So that leads me into asking you. You know, you're a role model now, whether you know it or not, whether you want to be or not. So as a role model, how does that make you feel? Do you feel pressure? Do you feel honored? Responsibility? A mix of all those things? What's it like? Because I mean, this is a pretty new experience, I imagine, for you.
It is definitely new, and it was really just this year that it hit me that I kind of have that kind of impact on so many people, and I've been able to impact people, and it's definitely a humbling thing to kind of be at an expo and have people come up and like say that you changed your life, and just like so like in awe to meet you. And I've had people come up to me and start crying before and stuff like that. And I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just bodybuilders. We're just kind of in the gym training, eating, so you don't realize the impact you have on people. But I guess I wouldn't say it's a pressure or anything, but it's an honor. Absolutely. I'm grateful for it every day, and I take it as a responsibility that I need to be a good role model and try and stay a good person and someone that lead by example, do the right thing, do things safe, do things healthy, and kind of try and create a good example for new and young kids coming into bodybuilding, kind of create something that they can strive towards and a healthy image that they can be. Yeah,
I mean, I don't talk to that many young people. I probably should talk to more, but I'm a cranky old man. But I mean, if I hear them talking about who they want to look like, what they aspire to look like, your name comes up a lot. I don't hear them saying like Rami or Phil Heath or anything.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of these guys your age even honestly know who they are anymore, who the top like Open Olympia guys are. Because I think it was like we talked about in a recent column is a lot of your followers, they like to look like you and they're into fitness and lifting and all that, but they're not necessarily people that follow any competitive side of even what you do. Just
Exactly. Yeah.
they think you're cool, they'd love to look like you.
Like two streams that have opened up now. There's like the bodybuilding stream and then the fitness stream, which has kind of become alive through social media. So you can be following people like me and not even realize I'm a competitor just kind of for my physique. And then there's all these people who have millions of followers on social media who are fitness people but have never competed in their life. And they have millions of fans that look up to them, but they don't give a shit about bodybuilding. It's just they want to look good on the beach, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? I used to get really upset about that, but I'm like, you know what? What's wrong with that? Why do they have to follow? You know, who am I to tell them you should know the top 10 of the Olympia and you should? You know.
Yeah. It's not taking away from any bodybuilding fans. The bodybuilding fans are all still there. It's just creating a separate part of the market, I guess you could say.
And I mean, this is something we talk about all the time. It's like, how can we make bodybuilding more mainstream? You can't. You can't. You
It's
can't
not.
make people. It's a very extreme look. It's something not many people can relate to or that they want to look at, and you're not going to make anybody pay attention to something or follow something that they don't want to.
No, absolutely not.
It's like NASCAR. I could give a shit about NASCAR. There's nothing you could tell me or show me that's going to make me want to watch cars drive around the track for hours. It's just not cool. Okay, so this is a sad story. 11 weeks off the Olympia. The last I saw, you had this awesome Dodge Charger SRT. You had the Hellcat, right? Is that what it's called?
I just have the SRT.
Okay. Still, it's a pretty badass car.
Yeah.
11 weeks off the Olympia. What happened?
I was driving my underground parking, and I mean, I go in there 2-3 times a day, never had a problem, but I was taking a corner just too tight, and I cranked right into a pole, going probably a little faster than I should have, but I was paying attention, and I just completely crushed the entire side of my door and the back plate of the door, so
Oh,
that wasn't fun, no. I mean, beauty of insurance, they covered it. They gave me a car drive in the meantime, but it was definitely sad. I sat in my car for like 5 minutes before even looking at it. Just like, shit, that did not just happen.
I thought you got like sideswiped by a drunk driver or something. I didn't realize it was you being dopey.
No, I wish I had a better story, but just me being an idiot.
Okay, but is it all fixed up now?
It is now. You couldn't tell it even happened, so.
Yeah, I mean, I like the color scheme. It's like camo green, right?
Yeah, dark green, yeah.
It's pretty badass anyway. Another challenge. You talked about this in one of your vlogs. You got sick at the start of your prep, and this is something I'm sure a lot of people deal with, but it's not something you hear about a lot. Inner ear equilibrium issues. So how long have you been dealing with that, and what happens when it like flares up?
I mean, that was a new experience for it to ever be that bad for me. I've always had kind of slight inner ear problems. I'm not even really sure what it's from. My doctor said it might be from, I had a lot of ear infections when I was younger, and it left scarring, so when I fly, my equilibrium's often thrown off. They pop in and out really bad, but it was just at some point, right when I was starting my prep, I think it was the first week, I kind of woke up one morning, felt a little dizzy, ate my breakfast, and next thing I know, I was just throwing it up, and then I couldn't stand because the room was spinning. It was just bad. I was so dizzy. I ended up staying in bed that whole day. I could barely get up. And that lasted for about 3 days where I could barely eat anything. I didn't eat for 2 days, and just kind of, it was a bad way to start prep, that's for sure. So I lost like 10 pounds over that little bit, and then I had to refeed the next weekend and then really start my diet. So I guess it put me a week behind, but we caught up now. So
does it just get better on its own? You just have to wait it out?
Essentially, yeah. There's a few techniques because there's like the particles or something that end up in the wrong part of your like ear. Like there's a shape that's kind of around like cochlea or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you kind of, there's like an exercise you can do where you put your head down and like whip it up really fast, and you try and like move the pieces of your brain inside there or something.
God.
Weird stuff, yeah.
All right, happier discussion now. So this last year, since the last Olympia, was your first real off season in, it's like 3 years, I think. Is that right?
I think 4 years.
4 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So what was it like having 12 months? Really? Well, you didn't have 12 months, but I mean, you had
Like 9 months.
9 months, a good chunk of time to really make improvements. What were we able to do in that amount of time?
I mean, I had a few ups and downs within it. Like I spoke about, I had some knee troubles in it, which might have even been to my advantage because, like you said, my legs were a strong point.
Right.
So it allowed me to have a long time to really focus on my weak points. And I definitely took full advantage of it for the first time. I was back home too. I just moved back. Had no distractions, living close to my coach again, Ian. Was off the student budget, so I could afford real food now. And it was just everything just kind of fell into place over the year. I had some of the best training I've ever had, definitely the most successful off season. I strayed a little bit away from the crazy heavy compound movements I used to do and focused a little bit more on kind of bodybuilding hypertrophy, mainly just trying to bring up my arms and my back and I trained arms almost 3 times a week, back twice a week, and just really focused on bringing those two things up.
And, you've talked about before, but it's new to some people. So what are some, just real quick, a couple techniques that you use for your back or your arms because a lot of people out there are dealing with lagging back and lagging arms.
Mm-hmm. So a big thing for me was both with body parts. Everything I used to train, I trained very heavy. And everything in my body responded very well to that, except for my back and my arms. Mm-hmm. So I kind of found that I was having trouble getting like that mind-muscle connection with them. Even though I'd still get a good pump, but it wouldn't be the same feeling as my shoulders or my chest or anything like that, or my legs. So I kind of dropped the weight down at the beginning of the off-season and really just focused on getting the right patterns down for every single movement, making sure my form was on point, I was contracting everything completely. And I went through periods of like overtraining. Like I would train my arms like 3 times a week and really hammer them, and then I would go down to once a week. So they're used to being able to recover 3 times a week, and then when I go back to 1, they recovered even quicker and quicker, and it just allowed them to kind of have a growth phase from that.
I have to steal that idea. If the one thing that would be, I don't know if you're concerned about it or if it is a concern, you're making a lot of gains in back thickness. It's such a large area, such a large group of muscles. Do you worry that you're going to grow out of the division if you get a much thicker, chunkier back?
I mean, it was such a weak point of mine. I think it'll take a few years for that to happen. Okay. But right now, the weight I'm sitting at, I know I'll easily be able to make weight. We got an extra 5 pounds this year. So 5 pounds is a lot of muscle to put on. And if I can put that all on in my back and my arms, then it'll be a drastic improvement. And I think I can bring a better condition than last year as well. So I got even more weight to move around. So I'm not too worried about not making the weight right now.
230, that's your cutoff?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Here's something. One of your vlogs, you talked about prep as being terrifying. And that's interesting. It's an interesting way to put it. But because the challenge of constantly having to improve on what you look like last time has to be intense, because at the level you're at, you're getting closer and closer to basically perfection, but you're supposed to keep getting closer every single time. So is it more of a, we talk about prep as being, in bodybuilding in general, but especially prep, it's being more of a mental struggle than a physical one. How do you cope with that? How do you mentally prepare every year for this onslaught, this mind F that prep is going to be?
I mean, personally, it's one of those just internal things that I believe some people have, if you have that competitive mindset or not. Like, I have this like idea in my head that I say to myself, I say it to everybody, and it's that you can always be leaner, no matter what. No matter how much you think you suffered, no matter how lean you were last year, you're inside out, you can always be leaner. So that's kind of what I was saying was terrifying, is you suffered so much the year before, you know what you put your body through, and then the next year it's like, you can be leaner, like you can do better, you can suffer more, you can come in tighter, drier, leaner, whatever. So it's just, I mean, it's a mindset I think people either have or they don't. Because I'm definitely not motivated every day to get up and go do my cardio, but I still drag my ass in there and do it every day and get it done. I haven't missed it once yet, so kind of.
What do you consider the leanest you've ever been at a show?
I'd probably say it was at the Olympia last year. Yeah. It was my best condition, yeah.
And you're going to beat that this time?
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow. I mean, and then next year you're going to have to beat that.
Exactly.
I mean, it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, for those who envy Chris, well, maybe you don't envy him as much when you hear that, because you stay lean and everything, but nobody gets that lean the way you do without going through some shit, some real torture. It's got to be. What's the worst? Is the last 2 or 3 weeks? What's the toughest part for you?
Toughest is definitely the last 2-3 weeks. there is that period at the beginning where your body's used to so much food and having so much energy constantly that it's like the mental battle. Your body's like, I need more food. You've been feeding me so much, to kind of reestablish that you don't need that much food and you'll survive on low calorie. But definitely those last 2 or 3 weeks. Last year I got to the point where I couldn't drive my car because I couldn't focus on the road, especially in the morning before I'd eaten or after cardio. I physically couldn't, my eyes couldn't focus on things because I was so depleted, so deprived and tired, and it got pretty crazy to that point. I've almost fallen off the bike before doing cardio and stuff. So you get real depleted and it gets rough. I gotta admit, I could not have had a job last year at how shitty I was feeling. I wouldn't have been able to focus on a task or even written a test, study for a test in school or anything.
Who was driving you around?
My ex-girlfriend was at the time, or I would do cardio in the house because I couldn't drive or something, you know. Once I got some food in me, I could drive, but the mornings and cardio were bad.
Oh boy, how far was it? How long a drive was it to the gym?
Only like 10 minutes, maybe.
Okay, not too bad. Okay, so the last thing I want you to do is run through the other top guys in your division, and just a little brief, a little evaluation, strong points and weak points. Doesn't have to be anything long. You can be as nice as you want or as mean as you want. That's totally up to you. You're Canadian, so I tend to think you'll probably be on the nicer side. You guys really are so nice. It's crazy. There's certain parts of the U.S. where people are just a-holes. And you know who you are, people. So we'll start with number one right now that you're trying to take down, Breon. Strong points.
Strong points. Definitely. This is the reason he's my number one threat. He won last year, of course, but his 2 strong points, I believe, are my 2 weak points. So his back and his biceps are absolutely insane. He's got these huge bicep peaks and one of the most detailed backs in the division. So his strong points, definitely those 2. I think I can beat him on a lot of poses. He might still have me on the back double, but that won't matter if I beat him in every other pose. So hopefully my back is caught up enough that I can be competitive with him and then beat him in enough other poses. But he's definitely...
Everybody's vulnerable, so where do you see a little chink in his armor? Where is he vulnerable?
I think kind of in his overall frame. Like when he hits an ab and thigh, he's a little bit more just like he's a shorter guy. He's just kind of a compact little guy. His side chest, he's not quite as wide as I am. Little things like that, I guess.
Okay. Arash Rabar, strong points.
Arash, strong points, he's very thick from the side. So when he hits his side chest, he's really good. He's got pretty good back and he's got real good muscle maturity. He always comes in absolutely conditioned. So he's one of those veteran bodybuilders who he's coming in peeled all the time. You got to give him that. You know he's working hard for those. And his frame, his kind of overall, he's got a bit of a thicker waist compared to a lot of us up there. So that's kind of his downside. His waist isn't quite as tight as the rest of ours.
Okay. And the guy who was right behind you last year, George Peterson.
George Peterson. This is another guy I believe people say should move divisions.
Yeah.
Which he does look a little bit like a 212 guy. He looks like he has the most muscle on that side's frame on stage, absolutely. But again, he's got crazy arms and an absolutely insane back. Probably a little bit thicker than Breon, but slightly less detailed. Yeah. But definitely his strong points, he's got me beat from the back. But again, his overall shape is a little bit blocky, I think. It's just I'm not a huge fan of his overall shape, but his body parts are all amazing, so it's hard to say.
He puts up a lot of back shots, as does his coach Justin. And you know what? If I had a back like that, I would be posting up a back picture like every 5 minutes. So God love you guys.
Show off what you got.
Next guy, you talked in one of your vlogs about Wesley Vissers because his fans are constantly, I don't know, harassing is the right word, but wow, what about Wesley? They always wanted you to comment on him, and you really had no comment because his shows had all been off in Europe, but now we finally saw him fairly recently. I saw him win the Chicago show, and I saw a lot of potential in him. I think he's not quite where he needs to be yet. I shouldn't be doing this. This is supposed to be you doing the evaluation. But so what do you think when you saw Wesley as far as this year at the Olympia? What do you think he's going to show as far as strong points, and where do you think he might still have work to do on?
I mean, he does have an amazing physique, and I think the biggest appeal to him is that he looks more like the 70s bodybuilders from the early 70s, which really he's one of the first guys to come out to really look like that old school, whereas most of us are chasing kind of the 80s, 90s look of bodybuilding. Yeah. He's the first one to kind of come in looking a bit more like Arnold and whatnot, but in my opinion, that just means he's lacking legs. So it's still bodybuilding, and bodybuilding has evolved. It's become more balanced than it was in the 70s. So I think his legs are definitely lacking. Even the way he poses, he puts them close together, trying to have that old look. But he's got a lot of size on him as well. His upper body, he's taller than me, I believe, so he's bigger than I am. His clavicle is so wide. He's got a big chest, huge arms, so he's definitely got that going for him. But once you get below his lats, he's got a big, thick waist, it seems, and it just goes straight down to his legs. So I think if he can bring up his legs, he'll be a big threat. But this year, I think he's got some work to do on that.
Speaking of 80s bodybuilders, somebody put up, I don't know if it was Facebook or wherever, I don't know where I saw it, but it was you side by side with Barry DeMay in the side chest pose. Did you see that?
I did, yeah.
And it was eerily similar. Like, it could be his kid. It was crazy. But yeah, I mean, Barry was somebody, we talk about people who might, if they were competing now, I think he would be right up there with you guys. I mean, I think he was right around the same weight, same height and weight as you.
I think we were very similar stats. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he's a bodybuilder I looked up to a lot coming up. He's one of my favorite old school bodybuilders. So
yeah, I mentioned because a lot of these young guys that they've never even heard of Barry DeMay. You gotta Google him and go to YouTube. Barry DeMay, DEMEY. This guy was pretty damn great.
Great posing too.
Moving on to another. Actually, I was supposed to ask this before and I forgot. Is why do you think we're getting so many great classic pros out of Canada? Because just this year alone, we've had guys winning shows. You're established already, but Regan came up. We had the Khalad Chaktawi win a show in Vancouver, and I was just in Tampa last weekend, and Henri Pierre Arnaud from Montreal.
Yeah.
Is classic like a lot more popular up there than open bodybuilding now?
It is becoming much more classic. Yeah, at least the shows I've been going to, you see bodybuilding numbers are dropping a lot, and classic is coming up very quickly. But also in the past few years, our qualification to become pro and to get to nationals and whatnot has changed a lot. So we've had a lot more opportunities to turn pro. Whereas like 5 years ago, there was one show a year that gave out one pro card. And since we've allowed more and more cards to be given out, it's allowed us to be more competitive with the Americans. Because obviously there's a higher number of pros from Canadians out there. So it's definitely allowed that. And I have a theory too, like, I think it was like the 4-minute mile back in the day. Everybody was trying to run a 4-minute mile, and then finally one guy did it, and within like a week, like 10 other people did it. It just became a standard, you know? So it's kind of like a Canadian went to the Olympia, he got it, did it, everyone's like, fuck it, I can do it too, you know? Excuse my language, but it's kind of one of those things. Once one person does it, everyone's like, hey, it's not that hard, let's just do it.
I mean, it's funny you say that because I interviewed a young guy named Robin Strand who turned pro at the Toronto show a few weeks back. It was back in early June, right? And that's basically what he was saying is, you know, now that we're seeing that it's possible for us, that it's not just the Americans and these Kuwaitis and everything. You know, I think, like, I don't know if it was an inferiority complex that maybe they had for years because it was so hard. There were so few good pros coming out of Canada. But once someone like you and a few others come along and show that it's possible, like you said, now everyone's like, okay, well, I guess I can do it. And all of a sudden they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Again, it's more of a mental thing. Because obviously the genetics with these guys were always there. What was missing? It's just like the mental component.
I guess so.
All right, we continue on down the line as we rate the classic pros going to the Olympia. Don't worry, man. We're almost done. So,
oh, good.
Henri Pierre Arnaud from Montreal, Quebec.
He's a physique that I've actually looked up to for a while because he's been a pro competing in the open for a while, right. And I've always loved his shape, partly because it's been a more classic shape in the open. So I definitely love his look. For the tall guys, he's definitely got one of the best backs in the game. A lot of tall guys have lacking backs, but his back is amazing. He's got these crazy long arms and long legs that are filled out. So I really like his physique and how he can actually hit a front double bicep with his abs clenched down and showing off his abs. Not many people can do that. I think one of his flaws is honestly that he's so big it almost overpowers a lot of people. But because like I saw him competing in Vancouver, he could have been a little bit tighter there. I didn't see how he looked in Tampa, but he could have been a little tighter in Vancouver. But everybody else was like 5'8", and he's out there 6'2". I think he weighed in at 240. Wow, so he's a big boy up there, and I don't know. Personally, I really like his physique. Maybe people think he's too big, maybe not, but I think he's got an amazing physique and could do well at the Olympia.
I don't get the thing about him being too big at all. I mean, like
it just kind of you stick. There's a point where your eye's drawn to something big, and then it's like you're just like a sore thumb, you know? You just kind of stick out a bit too much.
But I mean, like you said, his arms and legs are so long. he does have a ton of muscle on them, especially the arms and everything, but it's spread out over such a long area. It's not like, someone who's 5'4".
I'm saying that, and that's what I've heard, because I personally love his physique and think it's very classic, and he should be doing amazing. But he is doing amazing. He won a show, so just kind of going off other people's perspective as well.
So the guy that took second to him last week in Tampa, which I just really became aware of this guy, you've probably been following him for a little while, Keone Pearson.
Oh, yeah. I just kind of came around him as well myself. But he's got a good physique, absolutely. Nice shape, round muscle bellies, good little vacuum on him. I think he needs to change his posing. Like I said, people love that 70s look. All his poses, his heels are touching, his feet are right touching each other. And I mean, you're not showing off your best physique like that. Yes, you might look cool in golden era, but your best physique at the end of the day is you see Breon hit his front double, he's got his legs far apart like crazy, creating that X-frame, and I mean, he's the champ, so he's obviously posing right.
Yeah, but that was an MD cover a few issues ago, was Breon's front double bicep, so
yeah,
he clearly hits that pose very well.
Yeah.
I didn't have him written down, but I'm just realizing I should have written down Terrence Ruffin, because I was very impressed with Terrence at that Toronto show when he won a couple months back, much more so than I had been in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So Terrence Ruffin, how would you rate him?
Definitely the best poser in the division right now, in my eyes. His posing is next to none. I think he used to be a dancer or something, or he must have been, because it's absolutely amazing. His routine, I'm sure everybody's seen it, to I'm a Survivor.
Yep.
Every transition throughout every single pose, he looked perfect. Nothing was off. So that is very hard to do for your transition to look that good. So that, I got to give him that. His physique as well is amazing. He's got tiny waist, good arms, great back, big legs. But again, he's a really smaller guy. I think he's only 5'5", competes maybe around 160 or something. So as you see him standing beside me, Wesley, Henri, Regan, this guy's 60 pounds lighter than all of us. He's going to get lost in the mix. So it's tougher for the shorter guys.
He would be 80 pounds lighter than Henri. Jeez.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight.
Eat your Wheaties, Terrence. Eat your Wheaties. Almost done. First Olympia champion in the Classic, Danny Hester. What has Danny still got going on?
Danny's hard to say. He's got a very well-rounded physique. He's one of the better white guys with a good back, that's for sure. Good lower lats on him. His posing is also amazing. I think he guest poses 30 times a year, so his posing is amazing. But I think personally he's kind of tapped out on his physique. He's kind of established the best he could. He's made comments before that the first year the Olympia came out, he really murdered himself, absolutely killed, did everything he could to win it, and he did. And then next year, a little bit of that drive was gone, so not really willing to put himself through what he did that year before. I haven't talked to him recently, so that might have changed, and he might be killing himself again this year, but I think he's brought his best physique he could possibly bring, and he's not really going to change, and he'll kind of be hanging around that 5th, 6th spot maybe again.
Well, I'll tell you, I saw Danny compete as far back as 1991. So he's been around a long time. So props to him just for still being able to be at your level, because he's literally more than old enough to be your dad.
Can't even say he looks good for his age, too, just because he looks amazing regardless.
Yeah, I don't see any saggy skin, any wrinkles, nothing. He's holding up.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Mr. Propa, which I don't like that nickname. It just sounds...
I don't like it either.
It's because it's got the AH at the end, like Propa.
Yeah.
So, new nickname, Steve. Think about it, please. I'm trying to help. Steve Laureus, who was out of the Olympia, but now I believe he's back in the Olympia, because he just posted a picture recently, said 5 weeks out. So I think he's back in. Do you know?
I heard the same thing randomly. People just stopped after he did that show where he went in 212 and came placed poorly. I don't know what he placed.
I was there. He placed. He tied for 16th. I think he was.
Yeah, no, that was a very bad idea to do that. I'm not sure why he did that. But after that, he kind of disappeared, and I heard rumors that he dropped out of the Olympia. But like you said, I saw that post as well. Looks like he's back in it, and he's another guy he's a little bit bigger, got an absolutely insane structure. One of those kind of like Brian Buchanan, tiny little waist and gigantic arms. Yeah. Personally, I think it's put together a little bit strange, when you really look at his muscle, and he hasn't really brought the conditioning that's going to get him a top 5 at the Olympia. I've never seen him lean enough, and bodybuilding categories, what they judge is a big thing is how lean you are, especially at Olympia, especially in Classic. We're all coming in trying to make our weight. Everyone's sucked down to the bone, and I haven't seen him be able to bring that condition, so I think his weak point is going to be coming in lean enough.
Yeah, you make a good point. And I don't want to help your competition out, of course, because, you know, even though I love all the guys, of course, we want Bumstead to win. We're on Team Bumstead. So, but a condition is what I see lacking. I see some of these guys winning classic shows, qualifying for the Olympia. They're in pretty good condition, but I'm thinking if they show up at the Olympia like that, they're screwed.
Yeah.
You know, that's a whole other level of conditioning that they expect out of you at the Olympia.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Inside out, as you say. They want to see you looking like you're inside out, skinless.
Exactly.
So we'll see. We'll see if he can do it with the other guys. I know you're going to do it. I know Breon's going to do it. Both of you, I never have any doubt, are going to be in just ridiculous, shredded condition. And that's, you know, that's what the division's about. It's not about the bloofy muscles, you know, squishy muscles that we see on some of the open guys sometimes. Well, that is all the questions I had for you. Let's give your social media. Your Instagram is just CBUM.
Yep.
Okay. Let's get this guy up to 1 million soon, folks. CBum, and then YouTube is your name, Chris Bumstead.
That's it. Yeah.
And is there anything else, like a Snapchat, anything else you want to put out there?
No, that's it. I keep my Snapchat private.
I don't even know what Snapchat is, to be honest with you. So.
Better you stay away from that one.
No, my kids are on it. I still really have no idea what the hell it is. I don't want to know. So that is it. I guess I won't bother you again until Las Vegas. So wish you the best of luck with prep. Everyone's following along. You're a gentleman and a scholar, and I'd like to see what you got in store for us this year.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, thank you. All right, for the Ronline Report, this has been Ron Harris, Chris Bumstead. Thanks for watching.